Anger and concern as the IRA distances itself from Mitchell. Taoiseach announces examination of the books of companies owned by Michael Lowry and Kieran Haughey. The rate of inflation here is now the lowest of the European countries. And her last full day of duties as President Robinson moves towards the world stage. Good evening and welcome. Monday's all-party talks at Stormont were at the centre of a storm today, following an interview in An Phoblacht in which an IRA spokesman distanced the organisation from the Mitchell principles. On Tuesday, Sinn Féin signed up to Mitchell. Today, unionists said they should be thrown out of the talks. The IRA spokesman said Sinn Féin was a political party with a substantial mandate and what they did was a matter for them. But as to the IRA's attitudes to the principles per se, it would have problems with sections of them. And the IRA position on decommissioning, this side of a political settlement, was described as tantamount to surrender. The remarks of anger of the Ulster Unionist Party, whose executive meets this weekend to decide whether to attend the talks.
The IRA interview comes 48 hours after the Sinn Féin leadership affirmed the Mitchell principles, committing the party to renouncing the use of violence, as well as to paramilitary disarmament and helping to end punishment attacks. While the remarks in An Phoblacht aren't specific, they do show the IRA distancing itself from these commitments. Sinn Féin's chairman, though, saw the intervention as helpful to the peace process.
Clarity for all of the elements of this peace process is required, and I think if people settle down, calm down and read the article in full, that we will see, A, that the IRA have not changed the position of record in relation to issues such as decommissioning or their approach to the successful outcome of negotiations. And I think that that can only be of benefit, but it requires people to settle down and let's have no more of the opportunistic histrionics. Read the text of what was said.
While what was said doesn't mark any dramatic shift in Republican rhetoric, it was enough to cause the Northern Ireland office to describe it as a worrying development. While the IRA may be uneasy with some of the terms of the Mitchell principles, today's interview doesn't hint at any serious strain on their ceasefire. Nonetheless, the remarks come at a difficult time for unionists about to decide on their attitude to Monday's talks.
And it shows just how thoroughly dishonest an exercise this is of the people who we know are leading members of the IRA turning up to endorse the Mitchell principles last Tuesday and then attempting to wriggle out from underneath them today. It won't wash.
Sinn Féin now should be removed from the table. They got in under false pretences. They went in as part of those that could speak for and negotiate on the part of the bombers and the killers of the IRA. Now the killers and bombers of the IRA say that they don't accept the Mitchell principles and they don't accept consent from the people of Northern Ireland alone.
Ian Paisley was meeting David Trimble today to urge a united front in advance of Monday's talks. While the Ulster Unionists say they won't be provoked by the remarks, they could make Saturday's Executive Council meeting even more difficult.
The Taoiseach has said he expects the Mitchell principles to be honoured by the entire Republican movement. The SDLP leader John Hume, after talks at government buildings, said he didn't think there should be surprise at the IRA statement, given the nature of that organisation.
The SDLP had come to Dublin for discussions with the government on the opening of the all-party negotiations in Belfast next week. But the IRA's very deliberate distancing of itself from the Mitchell principles cast a cloud over the preparations for what are being hailed as historic talks. Earlier in the Dáil, the Taoiseach had described the views expressed by an IRA spokesman as being of major concern.
Sinn Féin on Tuesday last signed up to the Mitchell principles, and how the government view this matter is that I expect the Mitchell principles to be honoured by the entire Republican movement. And that includes that the way forward, Count Corlia, is that matters are dealt with by democratic and peaceful means, and that the issue of disarmament is also dealt with by whatever means, which will be now dealt with in the Commission.
Given that the IRA and Sinn Féin are one and the same organisation in terms of its political direction, this interview in An Phoblacht is extremely disquieting. and cast doubt on Sinn Féin's commitment to the Mitchell Principles. If that's the attitude of the IRA, then we may be dealing with just an empty formula.
However, after their talks with the Taoiseach, the SDLP reaction was more muted. Party leader John Hume described the timing of the IRA statement as peculiar, but said it might have been expected given the nature of that organisation.
The real question is, have the IRA stopped? That's the real question. And our view is that they have stopped, and that Sinn Féin are committing themselves from here on inwards to the democratic and peaceful method.
For Seamus Mallon, the more significant part of the IRA statement was the dismissal of the principle that any political settlement must have majority consent in the North.
I think that is the element of this statement which should be receiving attention to show how far out of step the IRA are with the position of the Irish people on that issue, and I hope it is not a position that is reflected by Sinn Féin within the negotiations.
The Tánaiste